Welcome to the battlefield of brains, where strategy meets chaos and every move burns with intensity. Watch grandmasters clash, pieces fall, and legends rise. Wesley pushes pawn to d4, boldly claiming central squares like a warrior planting a flag before the clash of armies begins. Szczepanski responds with pawn to d5, meeting the center head-on, iyong, erecting a solid shield against white's advancing forces. Wesley develops knight to f3, supporting d4 and preparing future attacks, like a general positioning cavalry for a swift strike. Szczepanski mirrors with knight to f6, reinforcing the center while keeping defensive lines tight like soldiers, ready for a sudden assault. Wesley advances pawn to c4, challenging black's structure, creating tension like siege engines, hammering the outer walls of a fortress. Szczepanski plays ch6, forming a sturdy Slav-style pawn chain, like erecting stone fortifications to resist incoming threats. Wesley plays e3, reinforcing central pawns and opening a path for his bishop, like quietly assembling hidden reserves behind the lines. Szczepanski develops bishop to 5, placing pressure on c2 and controlling diagonals, like a sniper taking position before battle erupts. Wesley develops knight to c3, supporting central pawns and preparing tactical threats, moving his pieces with precision and purpose. Szczepanski responds e6, solidifying the pawn chain and freeing the dark-squared bishop, preparing for safe and steady development. Wesley jumps knight to h4, aggressively targeting black's bishop, like a daring warrior sneaking behind enemy lines to strike. Szczepanski retreats bishop to e4, keeping it active and central, like a seasoned fighter, repositioning for maximum influence. Wesley pushes pawn to f3, attacking the bishop and challenging central control, striking like a battering ram on defensive walls. Szczepanski slides bishop to g6, preserving the peace and maintaining pressure, like a vigilant archer repositioning to cover critical squares. Wesley brings queen to b3, simultaneously threatening b7 and d5, like aiming long-range artillery at vulnerable enemy positions. Szczepanski responds queen to 7, c, defending weak points and coordinating with other pieces, like reinforcing key barricades before an incoming assault. Wesley moves bishop to d2, connecting rooks and preparing long-term plans, like generals gathering troops for a coordinated strike. Szczepanski develops bishop to e7, preparing for king's safety and flexible defense, like closing the gates of a fortress before nightfall. Wesley places rook on pawn, eyeing the open c-file and potential pressure, like lining up siege engines against enemy walls. Szczepanski shifts queen to b6, countering on the queen's side and poking pressure, like sending scouts to monitor enemy movements. Wesley pushes pawn to g3, preparing fianchetto and king's safety, like summoning a guardian for a strategic stronghold. Szczepanski develops knight to 7, reinforcing central squares and preparing to support other pieces like armored cavalry ready for battle. Wesley captures knight on g6, sacrificing a knight for structural damage, like breaking through a crucial part of the fortress. Stripunski recaptures h6, opening the H file and keeping material balanced, like repairing a breached wall while under pressure. Wesley advances pawn to f4, gaining space and attacking possibilities, like drums of war sounding for a kingside assault. Stripunski places knight on e4, centralizing and aiming at white's weaknesses, like planting a spear deep inside enemy lines. Wesley trades knight on e4, removing the central outpost, like eliminating a dangerous infiltrator before it can strike. Stripunski recaptures pawn d4, in the neuen Kurszenen, creating a central pawn presence and tension, like a spearhead lodged firmly in contested ground. Wesley pushes pawn to h4, advancing kingside pressure and potential attacks, like igniting torches along a stormy battlefield. Stripunski responds pawn to 5, contesting kingside control and trying to block white's momentum, like swinging a shield to meet an onslaught. Wesley activates rook to gone, 2, eyeing the g-file like setting up siege engines to hammer the enemy king's fortress. Stripunski shifts king to f7, stepping cautiously as if retreating behind protective walls under an approaching storm. Wesley develops bishop to c3, targeting long diagonals and central squares, coordinating forces like assembling elite troops before a major clash. Stripunski repositions queen to 7, reinforcing defense and connecting rooks, like a general fortifying lines before anticipated battle. Wesley moves bishop to 2, preparing defensive alignment and attacking potential, like repositioning archers behind protective stakes. Stripunski centralizes knight to f6, supporting critical squares and guarding king's safety, like placing guards at every possible entry point. Wesley marches king to f2, stepping toward active coordination, like a general personally inspecting the frontline troops. Stripunski pushes a pawn to a6, preventing infiltration and preparing b5 ideas, like erecting a barricade against enemy cavalry. Wesley strikes with pawn to d5, opening central tension and creating tactical opportunities, like a sudden explosion shaking the battlefield. Stripunski counters bishop to c5, keeping diagonal influence active, like a vigilant sniper controlling key sightlines. Wesley moves bishop to e5, dominating central squares and eyeing enemy pieces, like planting a flag on captured territory. Stripunski retreats queen to e7, defending critical points and keeping coordination, like reinforcing inner gates against enemy artillery. Wesley doubles rooks with urge-down, consolidating pressure on d-file, like stacking Ziga towers ready to smash walls. Stripunski places rook on date, contesting open file and holding the line, like soldiers bracing a collapsing barricade. Wesley shifts king to g2, moving towards safety while maintaining activity. Like a commander calmly inspecting key battlegrounds. Stripunski reinforces rook to d7, piliin, protecting central coordination. Like building layered defenses under constant tension. Wesley pushes pawn to e6. Attacking advanced squares and cramping black's formation. Like detonating explosives deep in enemy territory. Stripunski captures pawn with king on e6. Stepping into danger to maintain balance. Like a desperate hero entering enemy fire. Wesley trades rook on z7. Breaking defensive lines like a battering ram, demolishing the main gate of a fortress. Stripunski recaptures with knight on z7, trying to stabilize position. Like soldiers scrambling to rebuild shattered defenses. Wesley repositions bishop to c3, targeting critical diagonals and coordinating with rooks. Like a strategic archer lining up precise shots. Stripunski moves knight to f6, centralizing and supporting key squares. Like deploying elite troops to guard important passageways. Wesley repositions rook to d1, reinforcing control over central file. Like artillery returning for a coordinated long-range strike. Stripunski relocates rook to c8, shifting pressure and preparing counterplay. Like redeploying heavy units to new flanks. Wesley moves bishop to e5, dominating central squares and threatening tactical combinations. Like a master commander taking command of the battlefield. Stripunski shifts king to f7, stepping cautiously behind his lines. Like a monarch retreating to safer grounds under siege. Wesley marches king to f2, pin, maintaining central coordination and preparing future attacks. Like a confident general inspecting his troops. Stripunski moves king to 8, avoiding potential threats and seeking safer shelter. Like a cautious ruler navigating through chaos. Wesley pushes pawn to f3, preventing infiltration and controlling queenside squares. Like fortifying a strategic checkpoint before advancing further. Stripunski contests the d-file with rook to d8, attempting to hold central lines. Like soldiers bracing a critical barricade under assault, down. Wesley trades rook on d8, removing a key defender and cracking black's central defenses like a battering ram smashing through castle gates. Stripunski recaptures with king on d8, stepping into an exposed position, like a monarch forced into open battlefield under enemy eyes. Wesley shifts queen to d1, coordinating heavy pieces and preparing decisive threats like a commander lining up long-range artillery. Stripunski moves queen to d7, defending crucial squares and connecting pieces. Like reinforcing fragile walls before a final assault. Wesley pushes b-pawn to b4, gaining queenside space and attacking potential. Like a cavalry charge sweeping across exposed terrain. Stripunski captures pawn on d1 with queen, exchanging queens to reduce pressure while trying to hold defensive lines. Wesley recaptures bishop on d1, regaining material and controlling the long diagonal. Like a vigilant general reclaiming lost territory. Stripunski develops bishop to a7, maintaining defensive coverage and preparing king's safety, like placing archers on key battlements. Wesley advances pawn to c5, constricting black's queenside mobility, like tightening a noose around the enemy army. Stripunski shifts king to 8, slowly retreating towards safety, like a ruler seeking shelter from an advancing storm. Wesley moves king to a01, qa, improving central coordination, while preparing rooks to swing, like a commander aligning troops for final strike. Stripunski jumps knight to n5, looking for counterplay on king's side, like a desperate scout probing enemy lines for weaknesses. Wesley marches king to f2, stepping boldly into central activity like a fearless leader taking command of battlefield operations. Stripunski repositions knight to f6, defending crucial squares while maintaining some counterchances, like reinforcing scattered troops under pressure. Wesley places bishop on d4, controlling long diagonals and limiting enemy options, like a hawk soaring to dominate the skies. Stripunski shifts knight to d7, regrouping central defense and trying to cover weaknesses like soldiers patching a crumbling wall. Wesley captures bishop on g7, eliminating a key defender and opening lines toward the king, like a lightning strike tearing through fortress walls. Stripunski retreats bishop to f6, maintaining diagonal coverage while under threat, like raising a shield against a deadly storm. Pair. Wesley trades bishop on f6, removing the last defender of critical squares, like cutting the final chain holding a gate. Stripunski recaptures with knight on f6, trying to maintain some defense, though position is beginning to crumble under pressure. Wesley pushes g-pawn to g4, opening lines and threatening black's knight, like a wave crashing into enemy trenches with unstoppable force. Stripunski captures g4 pawn with f5, creating complications while hoping to survive, like a wounded warrior clutching a lifeline. Wesley moves king to g3, bringing the monarch into the fight while coordinating pawns and pieces like a general inspecting troops mid-battle. Stripunski centralizes knight to d5, trying to hold squares and create counterplay, like placing last archers on key barricades. Wesley captures knight on g4, eliminating defender and increasing kingside dominance, like clearing enemy forces from strategic high ground. Stripunski recaptures knight with e3, striking temporarily, though losing material control, like throwing a spear at overwhelming forces. Wesley moves bishop to c8, targeting c5 pawn and controlling long diagonal, like an elite sniper claiming vital sightlines. Stripunski pushes f-pawn to 5, trying to create activity and resistance, like a stubborn soldier refusing to surrender under pressure. Wesley marches king to f2, centralizing and connecting pieces, like a commander bringing reinforcements to coordinate final assault. Stripunski advances a pawn to f5, attempting queenside counterplay, like setting up a diversion as enemy forces close in. Wesley captures a5 pawn with b pawn, gaining queenside space and opening lines. Like a victorious general seizing control of enemy outposts. Stripunski moves king to date, retreating further under pressure. Like a ruler forced into shadows as storm clouds gather above. Wesley captures pawn on b7 with bishop, threatening rook and limiting mobility. Like a strategic strike crippling the enemy's defense. Stripunski shifts king to 7, stepping toward the center while trying to avoid threats. Like a wounded warrior seeking temporary refuge. Wesley places bishop on a6, controlling long diagonals and cutting escape routes. Like an archer surveying the battlefield from a high tower. Stripunski captures knight on h4, gaining material but opening defensive gaps. Like salvaging a small item from a collapsing fortress. Wesley marches king to e3, bringing it toward the center and coordinating pieces. Like a general personally leading the final offensive. Stripunski jumps knight to f3, attempting counterplay near white's king. Like a desperate warrior striking with a last blade. Wesley pushes pawn to a5, creating threats on king's side and opening lines. Like releasing warhounds toward enemy camps. Stripunski plays knight to f3, repeating maneuver to maintain tension. Though options are dwindling like a soldier trapped in ruins. Wesley marches king to e4, centralizing with confidence and connecting pieces. Like a victorious hero advancing through enemy lines. Stripunski advances knight to 5, searching for tactical resources. Like a flickering torch in a collapsing tunnel. Wesley captures knight with pawn on e4, removing black's defender and solidifying control. Like clearing the last obstacle in a siege. Stripunski centralizes knight to f5, trying to maintain influence. But position is weakening like crumbling barricades under relentless pressure. Wesley pushes e-pawn to f5, controlling central squares and restricting black's pieces. Like an unstoppable iron tide sweeping the battlefield. Stripunski plays knight to e3, blocking advance and creating resistance. Like a lone soldier holding a broken gate. Wesley shifts king to f5, dominating central territory and coordinating attacks. Like a master general claiming the heart of enemy lands. Stripunski develops rook to date, activating final piece for defense. Like a last cannon pointed at incoming invaders. Wesley captures pawn on f5 with king. Advancing decisively and eroding black's remaining defenses. Like a conqueror feasting on vanquished lands. Stripunski moves king to date, stepping back under mounting threats. Like a retreating monarch witnessing inevitable defeat. Wesley marches king to a5, asserting full control and cutting off escape squares. Like a commander sealing all enemy exits. Stripunski brings bishop to g5, attempting final resistance. Like a ceremonial last stand before inevitable collapse. Wesley shifts king to 5, tightening dominance and coordinating pieces. Like a hero surveying conquered territory with absolute command. Strapunski pushes knight to f4, wandering on the board while trying futile threats, like a ghost lost in ruined halls. Wesley captures pawn on g6 with king, eliminating remaining resistance on kingside, like claiming spoils after a victorious march. Strapunski captures pawn on c5 with knight, delaying defeat but failing to change the outcome, like a desperate final grasp. Wesley pushes pawn to 5, sealing dominance and ending all counterplay, like a king finalizing victory with unstoppable authority. I'll end the video here. Please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll keep finding the best and newest videos to share with you. Thank you so much. And I wish you all happiness and good health.